Was this a dream? The sky was red. It had been a white a moment ago, but now the whole world was a rusted red. This must be a dream, a delusion, like all the other ones. That's why I decided to tell myself. I could see black puffs of mist here and there. It felt like they were shaped like humans. It had to be a hallucination, but it looked bizarrely real. They were shimmering, slowly in the irregular patterns. One would disappear, only to appear a moment later, somewhere else. There were many of them. Just looking at them made me feel upset somehow. Something smelled terrible. I felt like I was going to throw up. I didn't want to be here for a second longer than I had to. I had a strong, overwhelming desire to get out. Ooh. Sometimes when you see the sky being an unnatural color, you're just like, aw shit, the world's ending. When I woke up, the sky was bright and Shibuya was a city of death. General Hospital hadn't collapsed, luckily, but there were huge cracks in the walls, and the inside was a mess. Oh, it's a good thing they left then, huh? The lobbies of the outpatient wing were filled with the wounded, and some had been brought here by ambulance and some who had walked in on their own, all of them demanding to be the first to see the doctor. When I woke up, Ayase smiled and told me that we were going back to Shibuya. I asked her what time it was, and she said around 6 in the morning. I would have been unconscious for 10 hours or so then. I couldn't see Yua anywhere. I asked Ayase, but she said that she didn't know. Ooh, so we're already here. Wow. That was a lot faster than before. Inside. The train ride from Yogi to Shibuya takes less than 5 minutes. But the aftershocks from the quake had shut down the trains entirely. The tracks were an absolute mess. They wouldn't be coming back online today. We were forced to walk, but the streets were cracked and caved in, or blocked entirely with rubble from fallen buildings. A straight path was impossible. It took us almost 3 hours to get to Shibuya. Wow. A 5-minute train ride took 3 hours. Ooh. That just shows you how bad of a shape Shibuya's in. The area around the station was a mess. Most of the buildings had fallen. The number of bodies was unbelievable, and the way they died was too horrible to look at. Some people were still moving. Some people were walking around with looks of shock on their face, like us. Others were crouched next to the rubble and waiting for help. Some of them were clinging to the dead and crying. None of the living had the energy left to even look at them. The shock had drained all the energy from their bodies. The strong smell of blood and the smell of dust and the foul smell of something rotting filled the air. Was this Gladio's doing? Maybe Gladio was an earthquake. In America, they'd given human names to hurricanes like Andrew or Katrina. Was this the ending that Ayase had wanted? Maybe it was the perfect ending for an apocalyptic fantasy. But even if Ayase was a gigalomaniac, or what she called a Black Knight, could she really cause this earthquake all on her own? He talked about worlds melting and linking. What did that mean? I took a quick look at her. She was a few steps in front of me. This was enough to rattle even her. From the looks of it, she bit her lip as if it would help her endure the pain and walked on silently. I wonder if they're gonna wander into Noah too. I mean, all the endings aside from Nanami's, because that was pretty much a bad ending, led to confronting Noah too. So, I mean, maybe character endings are different, but I mean, we'll see. The speaker was a middle-aged man in a suit. A good number of people were still alive, including us. He seemed to be speaking to the survivors. I wonder if they're working for Nozomi, because I remember seeing the only people in suits, black suits here that we've seen were like Nozomi people. Here it didn't say black suits specifically, but the suits are sus. The guy had a lot of energy, I thought. Several of the people around him must have agreed with him, though, as they began to slowly walk towards him. Most, however, didn't. Ayase ignored him. She seemed to be heading somewhere. I had no choice but to go with her. I'm gonna be honest, if I were in Takemi's position, and all this shit happened in front of my eyes, I would be sticking to Ayase like gum on a shoe. Because she, as crazy as she is, she's literally called everything and has helped Takemi get through this. And even though she's trying to get him to awaken his D-Sword to, solve the issue, even if she's delusional, she hasn't been wrong. I felt a stabbing pain in my temple. The same pain hit me several times on the way here from Yoyogi.
頼むよみんな立ってくれどうしてわからないんだここは危ないんだって瓦礫の下敷きになったらどうするんだ俺はみんなに生きていてほしいんだよ
Man, this guy's getting a lot of lines. My head hurts. Oh, what the heck? The city's on fire! Shibuya's on fire! What's going on? The sky suddenly turned red. I looked up and saw reddish-brown clouds in the sky. It was what I'd seen in my dreams. The asphalt road, the concrete rubble, the buildings, the glass on the ground, lampposts broken at their base. They were all covered in rust. Who the fuck? I heard an insane laugh. It was a man who'd been trying to get everyone to evacuate. Oh, that's why he got a lot of time. There was what looked like a black mist wrapped around his body. No, it wasn't just him. Everyone here except the dead had that same mist coming out of their bodies. The mist seemed the same size as a person. It was slowly wavering. It seemed curiously alive, and something about it just made me feel sick. This was the same as my dream too. The man's laugh was pissing me off. I turned over to him and, for some reason, there was an assault rifle in his hands. Oh, crap! He suddenly started firing the gun! I dropped down. I'd been shot. At least I thought I'd been. I was right in front of him when he'd been firing. But I didn't feel any pain. I looked up terrified. Just a delusion. Don't worry about it, just a delusion. He didn't have a gun. He was yelling to the people around him. What? The change was instant. The man had been shouting with his fist in the air. There was a burst of static and suddenly he was holding a gun. That wasn't how human beings worked. There was a gap between one movement and another. It didn't feel real at all. It was like watching two separate videos that had been badly spliced together. Just casually dimension hopping, you know, between timelines. He fired his gun again, but people around me were falling over, blood splurting from bullet wounds. There were screams all over the square. But for some reason, none of the bullets touched me. It felt like I was watching a movie. It didn't feel real.
Takumi.
He's awakening. He's beginning to believe. When Ayase said my name, everything went back to normal. She was staring at me. She looked just like she wanted to say something, but instead she just turned her back to me and started walking. I wonder if that's like the world that Ayase sees, and like that black mist is like the wicked heart or something. And he's slowly essentially buying into her delusion, and so he's slowly seeing the things that she's seeing. I looked up at the sky. It was cloudy, but it wasn't red. A dull gray light lit up everything around me. It wasn't rusty red. The man with the gun was still calling for people to go to the shelters. The people he'd shot were unharmed. I couldn't see any black mist anywhere. What did I just see? Another delusion? The same as always? If so, my imagination sure as hell wasn't what it used to be. The illusion just now didn't feel real at all. It was like a movie or a video game.
Takumi, 早く来て.
Ayase motioned me forward. Ayase motioned me onward. Where was she going? Was she headed to a shelter like the man had been saying? Nope. We're gonna go solve the problem. As it turned out, she wasn't. For some reason, she headed to the Inokashira line station. Like, this is what I mean. Takumi had to, like, find out several different methods in order to get to like, Noah. Hell, Hatano had to die for it. And now she's just like, no, I saw it in a dream. Let's go this way. No staff were there. The trains weren't moving. She got down onto the tracks and started to walk alongside them. The tunnel was dark and poorly lit. There was a place where most people would never be allowed in their entire lives. It hadn't collapsed yet, but there was no telling when it would. Yesterday, I never would have imagined I'd be doing something like this. An adventure alongside the train tracks. It made for a great movie. Wait, wasn't there already a movie like that? It was from before I was born, so of course I'd never seen it. I knew that it was about walking alongside the train tracks in search of a dead body. Actually, I guess the subway tunnel wasn't a very good movie set. Not much to see. The tunnel would take us to Shinsen, then Komaba Todai Mae, then after that Ikenoe, and Shimo Kitazawa. If you want a way to get out of Shibuya, following the train tracks like this would be a good way to do it. We walked all the way back from Yoyogi, which was a good distance away from Shibuya, Shibuya Center. It was safe to assume that whatever Ayase was doing, she wasn't trying to escape Shibuya.
どこへ行くの?
So, right now, Takumi actually has not awakened his D-Sword yet. So, like, unless he awakens it soon, or in the fight against Narose, I'm assuming Narose is still the final boss. I'm assuming that he's going to be Gladiol in this case. But unless he awakens it in that battle or before, they're not gonna have a good time.
深センの駅よ。
What would she want to do there? Was she planning on heading to school, or maybe she wanted to go to the base? But Ayase didn't know where I lived. I suddenly wondered if Seraton was safe. What would I do if the Kurenai building had collapsed in the earthquake and my wives were buried in the rubble? I had more important things to worry about now, though. I could see a light straight up ahead. Oh, we're gonna see this confrontation. It does make sense, because right now she's missing three D-Swords. Takumi's, Kozupi's, and Senna's, and Kozupi and Senna would probably both be here. Though I am kind of curious if they are both knocked out here. There was a railway crossing out past the tunnel where you could see the sky. Past it, the tracks entered the building again, and that's where the platforms were. The lights on the platforms were out because of the earthquake. It was dark inside. It was almost entirely empty. I could see only two people sitting on the platform. From their clothes, they were both female students from Suime. Ayase walked straight towards them. Did she know them, maybe? As I got closer, I could see them clearly, even in the darkness. My eyes narrowed. Hadn't I seen them somewhere before? I quickly realized who they were. Kozupi da yo! Yo, Senna and Kozupi! But something was wrong. They must have heard my footsteps, but they didn't move to look up. They were just sitting there, unmoving.
Senna? Kozupi?
Wait, they're not moving? They're not dead, are they? I called out their names. They didn't move. What was going on?
黒騎士の心が殺されていく。
Mind crush. Ah, I see. Oh. So that's what happened to Yua. I still don't know how she got Rimi and Nanami's D-Swords, to be honest. But so they're just kind of out of it because their minds have been destroyed.
だから回収するの。理想度。
I wonder in that case, like, why Ayase and Takumi are fine. No way. That's impossible. I ran over to them. I looked into Senna's slumped forward face. Senna's eyes were lifeless. There was no light in them at all. Oh, sorry. This is just an extremely lazy way of having a CG, because they're like, we're just gonna reuse the one where she like collapsed, like where Hatano pushed her over, right? But we need her to have like a dead-eyed face, like just deadpan, just, you know, out of it. But she doesn't have it in this picture, so we'll just erase it. There was no light in them at all. The bright light in her eyes when she glared at you was nowhere to be seen. She was whispering something in a voice so soft I could barely hear it, but I couldn't make out what she was saying. Kozubi was the same. There was no light in her eyes. Drool was falling from her lips. She was emitting a soft, wordless moan. What had happened to the two of them? What was going on in Shibuya? I looked over to Ayase, hoping that she could answer my questions, but she didn't seem to care about them at all. Her eyes were on their D-Swords, which were lying on the ground next to them. She brought her own D-Swords close to them. I heard the awful resonating sound again. The three D-Swords changed shapes. There was a shockwave like a blast of wind. When it was gone, Senna and Kozubi's D-Swords were in Ayase's hands, absorbing all of them.
これで 6本揃った。
Ayase's cheeks were red, like she was excited. She was staring at me. Just one more.
あとは君が手に入れるだけよ。
How could she be so calm? I start to snap at her, but just then, the stabbing pain in my head came back. Whoa, whoa. The world turned red. Everything rusted and rotted. A terrible smell was coming from Kozupi. She slowly stood up. Her entire body was red. Was it blood? Was it rust? Zombie! Zombie pee! She looked up. The black mist was covering her face. I could feel her intense desire to murder me. Her thin arms reached out, as if to strangle me. I blinked and Kozupi was sitting on the ground again. I couldn't see her face because she was slumped forward. Oh, static, and Kozupi was right beside me. The black mist touched my shoulder. It was cold. I shivered. Her voice was emotionless, machine-like, and that's what made it scarier than usual. I blinked. Senna's body was being ripped apart. Kozupi was bringing down a shard of broken glass on Senna's head. No! Dark blood red stains Senna's pretty black hair. Kozupi raised the glass again and stabbed. Static. Now Kozupi was unmoving, and Senna had come back to life. Senna was crouched atop of a prone homeless man who hadn't been there a minute ago. Her head was pressed up against his shoulder. It was moving up and down, twitching. What was she doing? Her hair was covering her face, and I couldn't see. Slowly, Senna raised her head. The man's shoulder was covered in blood. I could see the raw exposed meat and pink glistening muscle. No, was that blood? Muscle? Rust? Yum! Senna turned around. Her mouth was covered in blood. She was chewing something. Zombies! What was the point of that? I felt dizzy and fell forward. Then the world was back to normal. The headache was gone. I put a hand on my forehead and shook my head a little. I felt awful, like I was going to vomit. There was no terrible shock or instant feeling of terror, but something like a poison was working its way through my body, a sick feeling that wouldn't go away. I looked up at Senna and Kozupi again. The two of them were sitting there, unmoving.
どうしたの?
I don't want to talk about it. I had this weird nightmare where these two people just, started eating me and eating each other and like eating this homeless dude. Like, have you ever wondered what humans taste like? I mean, what? Ayase offered me a hand. She looked like she wanted to say something again. I took her hand and stood up. So we're going to Noah 2, I think? We left Senna and Kozupi where they were. I wanted to help them, but it didn't feel like I had the strength to do it. And Ayase didn't seem to care. Oh no, we went back up to Shibuya. We head back to Shibuya Station. We encountered several injured people on our way back. A whole bunch of dead bodies, too. Ayase was looking up at the sky, tense. I resisted the urge to throw up and spoke to her.
Ayase waどんな結末を望むの?
結末?
Iwa's missing. Senna and Kozupi had their minds destroyed. Ayase had taken the D-swords from all the Gigalomaniacs. Well, stolen would be more accurate. And Ayase was the one who had set it all up to happen, too. Could I be sure that it wasn't Ayase? Had she been lucky enough to have every single Gigalomaniac with a D-sword conveniently have their mind destroyed just before she got there? Not a chance in hell. If Ayase had set that up, the earthquake was her doing. Gladio was a myth that Ayase had created.
この地震が綾瀬の妄想じゃないって言い切れる。綾瀬だって望んでたんでしょ。
そうね。
なんでこんなこと。
匠、結論を急がないで。
Stop speaking in riddles, please just tell me.
すでに予言されていたの。セイグラーによって。私はそれを知っていた。ただそれだけ。
グラジオール機は綾瀬の妄想じゃないか。そんな本 どこにも存在しないよ。
匠も見たはずよ。私。
ああ、見たよ。でもあれは白紙だった。
匠に見えていなかっただけよ。
そんなの詭弁だ。嘘だ。僕を騙そうっていうのか。
You didn't see it because you weren't wearing 3D glasses.
世界は約67億ある。つまり人類の全人口よ。異なっているの。それぞれの見ている世界は全く同一であることはないわ。匠と私もそう。
それが本当だって言うならそう出してよ。どうせ無理なんでしょ。
Do you have a source? Ayase stared at me, her eyes narrowed. It wasn't like she didn't know what to say, it was more like she was trying to keep her feelings from showing.
見たいの？私が見ている世界を。
できるならやってみてよ。たとえ見せられても信じないだろうけど。
違うわ、匠。君はもうすでに私の世界と君は少しずつ同期し始めているのよ。
You're starting to synchronize. Oh, so she saw the horrors of humanity and zombies.
何を。
I knew it. The world turned to rust again. I could see a black mist hovering over the people on the ground. There was a child crushed underneath the rubble. His head was poking out. A man who looked like his father was trying to save him. Static. The father was stamping his foot on the child's head. The boy's skull was split open like a watermelon. Blood and brains were everywhere. More static. The boy's head was unharmed. The father was shouting to him, "Hang in there! I'll get you out!" Static. The boy wasn't under the rubble anymore. He was screaming at his father, "Get your ass moving, you old geezer!" He was stabbing him with a knife. A short distance away, a young man and woman were sitting on the ground. They were huddled together under a blanket. So static. The static wrapped itself around them. The man was raping the woman. The woman's screams echoed off broken street. Her screams disappeared in another burst of static. The two of them were sitting there, silently. Two middle-aged women— okay, I kinda get the point, man. We're slowly moving down the street. They looked like sisters. A burst of static, and one was yanking the other by the hair. She was pulling hard, dragging her down on the street. Tufts of hair was being ripped out. More static, and then everything was normal.
なんだよこれ。
私の世界よ。
My world. This? It was her delusion, not mine? Or was it delusion at all? Was it real? I could see the black mist around Ayase's chest too. I looked away, trying to keep it out of my field of vision.
匠の見ていた空はどんな色をしていた？
どんな青い。
Of course, yeah. Oh.
あんな色？
Ayase pointed at the sky. It was red.
あれは赤土色だ。
赤土色？あの色は青じゃない。
どこからどう見ても青空じゃないよ、常識的。
でも私にとってはあの色が青なのよ。
What are you talking about?
匠は説明できるの？青色ってどんな色？
どんなって、だから空の色。
あの色の空しか知らないのよ、私は。
みんな青がどんな色かぐらい知ってるでしょ。
Oh man, he's gonna make fun of colorblind people, even though most I think
だ
are
から説明して。
green, red colorblind.
例えを使わずに青にはどんな色なのか。
Without using examples, I thought, but got nowhere. I couldn't come up with any way to explain the color blue. Ayase looked sad when she saw my reaction.
世界は約67億ある。そう言ったはずよ。空の色も67億通りある。みんな見ているものが同じだとは限らないわ。
Everything turned back to normal. This color was my sky.
綾瀬はずっとあんな世界を見てきたの。
She gave me a soft nod.
生まれた時からずっと。それが
Oh,
でも
crap.
違うのね。
She said that's how the world was.
今匠の話を聞いて理解できたわ。
あの黒いもやは何なの？
写真よ。誰でも持っているものなの。人ならば。そしてこの邪神はグラジオールの糧となり、形を作り出していく。見えた？人々の負の妄想が。
Was that what I was seeing when I saw the static and then all the people were doing all those terrible things?
私は昔から見てきた。黒騎士ならば程度の差はあってもみんな見えているはずよ。そこにあるのはむき出しの悪意、むき出しの欲望。
So, Ayase had been seeing that world since the day she was born?
匠、私が望む結末はこの錆びついた世界から魂ごと抜け出すこと。
Oh, wow. She kind of acknowledges her delusions, but she wants to escape from them. Huh. That's actually pretty interesting, because you kind of think that this entire time she was just giving in to them, but no, she was delusional, but she didn't want to be.
そのためにはグラジオールを倒さなければならないのよ。
Ayase walked over to me.
だから見つけて、あとは匠だけなの。理想像を見つけて。
無理だ。
I grabbed Ayase's shoulder and pushed her away. Ayase's eyes went wide, like she was shocked by what I'd done.
なぜ諦めるの？
僕は綾瀬が思うほどすごい人間じゃない。どれだけ望んでも理想度が手に入る兆候すらないじゃないか。オーフロントの時もそうだったし、地震が起きてからもそうだ。方法がわからないんだ。理想度なんて手に入れられないよ。自信がないよ。
それならなぜ私を助けたの？
Ayase approached me again, with a new forcefulness in her step. I backed away.
助けたって一体何のこと？
The flower bed, you dum-dum!
私が学校の屋上から飛び降りた時、君が花壇のある世界を生み出した。だから私は一つ上のステージに魂を移すことはできなかったわ。
It was just luck. I didn't even mean to do it.
それでもいいと思った。君の力を知ることができたから。あの時から君が私の希望になったから。
Please don't have any hopes for me. Don't expect me to do anything.
匠、自分を卑下しないで。それは邪神王の精神侵略よ。負けてはいけないの。君には力がある。確実に手に入れられる。必ず理想度。
無理だ。無理だよ。
Yes, you can. You just have to believe. I thought that I could stay with Ayase. I thought that she was the only one who could protect me. But now, after spending time with her, I understood. I couldn't stay with her after all. The world she saw was just too different from my own. To be perfectly blunt, she was too crazy for me. I am a piece of shit, aren't I? But I am who I am.
なぜそんなことを言うの？
She was clinging to me with tears in her eyes. The cool, unemotional girl I'd known was nowhere to be seen.
私はこんな世界にいたくない。お願い、解放して。私の希望になって。黒騎士として目覚めて。
Waken.
無理だよ。
無理じゃないわ。
Back to Rusted. I'm gonna call this the Rusted world. Ugh! Ayase's world synchronized with mine again. The black mist flowed out of her chest and wrapped around my body. It was like an anaconda encircling its prey to squeeze and kill it. I could feel its awfulness up against my skin. It was Ayase's raw, exposed desire. Nobody was used to seeing the exposed emotions of other human beings. Static.
君は私の希望。
Ayase was staring at me. Her eyes were pitch black.
君を離さないわ。
I won't let you
常
go.
に止める。どんな手を使ってでも。
You have to take responsibility. Her fingers started unbuttoning my blazer buttons one by one.
君を欲しい。
She pressed herself up against me like she'd done when she kissed me in the closet. I was frozen solid. I couldn't move. All the buttons were undone. She opened my shirt, and then she began to loosen my belt and lowered the zipper of my pants.
君の力。
Is this going where I think it's going? Her cold hands ran across the skin of my chest. And then she dug her nails in. Ooh! Ah! The pain was awful, but I still couldn't move.
欲しいのよ。
The fingers dug into my flesh, went between my bones, and gently rubbed my beating heart. Grabbed. I was shaking, from fear, from pain, from the coldness of her hands.
あったかい。もらうわね。
Uh-oh. Uh-oh.
ダメ。
Oh, you heard it. I could feel the blood vessels bursting. Blood poured out from my chest. She was taking it. She was taking my heart. The world suddenly changed color. Everything was dim and blurry again. The red bronze color was gone. My body was unharmed. I put my hand to my chest. I could feel my heartbeat. My heart was right there. She was standing in front of me. Her expression looked so sad, like she might cry again at any moment. Again, when she'd taken the D-sword from Yua, when I first seen her world at the Scramble Crossing, when she'd taken the D-sword from Senna and Kozupi, she always looked at me like she was trying not to cry.
首。そんなつもりじゃない。写真を制御できなくなっている。取り込みすぎたせいかもしれない。理想度。写真王の精神侵食で、私はおかしくなりつつある。
Wasn't that all just a part of your delusion? Everything that you're telling me is a lie, isn't it? The words came to my mind, but I didn't say them. I couldn't say them. Ayase was always so cold, so reserved. She never had any kind of expression on her face at all, but now she looked so sad. She was showing me how fragile she truly was.
僕はどうすればいい？
A very small tear ran from the corner of her eye. She was looking at me desperately.
私は支配されつつあるわ。このままじゃ自我を保てない。だから取り除いて私の中を侵食する不浄なる邪心を。
So do I like stick my hand on it and then like pull it out, or like do I fire my laser at it? Do I stab you with a D sword? You have 6. At least give me one of them, right?
取り除くって。
私の世界を見たでしょ。あの黒いもやは人が持つ不浄なる邪心が具現化したもの。むき出しの悪意。それを掴んで私の体から引き抜いて。
I can't. Just the thought of doing something so disgusting.
お願い、匠。私は私でいたいの。私の世界を救って。
Then slowly, she dropped to the ground. She looked so fragile, oh frail. We'd promised. She told me this.
君を守るわ。君も私を守って。
Senna and Kozupi were broken beyond repair. Rimi was gone. I didn't want to lose Ayase too. That was part of it. But more than anything, I wanted to save her. I knew that there was no way I could. But even if Ayase was just crazy, even if it was all just part of her delusion, I wanted to save her. The second I had that thought, rust covered the world. I could see the black mist coiled like a snake, about to strike, one end coming out of her chest. Just looking at it made me feel terrible. I wanted to look away, but if I did, nothing would change. I had to try, but I couldn't. My heart felt like it was being crushed in my chest. The headache was getting worse. I can't do it. I can't. I'm not the kind of person who could save somebody else. I looked up when she called my name. She was offering me her hand. Wet eyes stared straight at me. Complete trust, or maybe just dependency. But nobody had ever relied on me like this before. My heart was starting to lose hope, but with the help of Ayase's voice, I managed to keep from giving up. I bit my lip and took a step towards her. Her black snake stretched out to me like it had found a new prey and wrapped around my neck. It was so freezing cold that it actually felt hot. It wrapped around my neck with a gentle, almost pleasant force. Ayase fell towards me, all the strength that had left her body. I had to support her from falling. Huh. So it's like that. Oh, okay. I put my hands around her thin waist.
本当にいい
So what are you gonna do? I gulped loudly, and then I reached my hand towards the black snake coming from her chest. In an instant, the mist took physical form and became a black leech. The feeling of disgust got even worse. Ayase's wicked heart, in its purest form, the ugliest parts of her, the one she didn't want to show anybody. That's what this was. Yeah, that's disgusting. I grabbed the leech's body. It was so slippery and so cold. It was physically painful. I wanted to let go of it immediately, but I didn't. Stop moaning! Ayase was moaning with a look on her face, somewhere between ecstasy and pain. I'm pretty sure they just, like, had a sex scene in a different context. I pulled as hard as I could. I could feel what felt like tearing flesh. Black liquid poured out from her heart. It got all over my hands and face. I couldn't tell if it was blood or something else. I ignored it and kept pulling at the leech.
大丈夫
I stopped. I couldn't take her screaming, but Ayase put her hand on mine. Her voice was strong, even if she was covered in sweat. I didn't hesitate anymore. Even if I did, I'd just make her suffer.
抜けろ
I used all my strength and pulled on the leech. Her body was spasming hard. The leech kept coming out. It was longer than I thought. It turned into a black lump and wrapped itself around my arms. It was squeezing my hands with incredible strength. Maybe these were its death throes. I gritted my teeth at the pain. I pulled it out, but I didn't know what to do with it. Ayase gently stroked my cheek, leaning her body against mine. The black wicked heart in my hand began to glow with a purple light, with a sound like a microphone feedback or a scream. He has his D sword! It turned into a sword.
ディソード
But I wanted so badly, but I'd never been able to get one, and now it was in my hands. Ayase's wicked heart had become a D sword. Oh, she's covered in blood now. As I held her in my arms, Ayase smiled. She was still in pain, but she was smiling. There's sweat on her forehead, and her bangs were stuck to her brow. Did I really do something worth a thank you? I couldn't tell. I wasn't sure. Ayase put her hand around my neck. She held me tightly.
私の話を真面目に聞いてくれたのは嬉しかった。すごく。
Her body was so hot. The black liquid on her chest was gradually turning red. The blood stained my clothes too. I didn't care. I held Ayase tightly. Her breathing was ragged, and with each breath she took, her whole body heaved. I could smell her sweat, but even that didn't bother me.
大好き。
Yeah, Takami's gonna get some. Did I love Ayase? Maybe I was just dependent on her, but she was dependent on me too. That wasn't so bad, was it? Maybe we could just stay together like this. The sky is moving a little, but I don't know if something's supposed to happen. Suddenly, the sky behind Ayase turned from reddish browns to black. It was like a stain, or maybe a star. But the size of the stain grew bigger and bigger. It was on its way to blotting out the whole sky.
なんだあれ
I whispered in shock. Ayase saw that something was wrong, and with my help, staggered to her feet and looked up at the sky.
あれが目覚めた邪神。
Oh, it's actually just gonna be a being instead of just Genichi Narose.
ついに侵略を始めたんだわ。結局私は間に合わなかったというの。もう止められないの。そんなことさせない。
She's got a superpower sword now. Ayase pulled her D-sword from empty air.
どうするつもり
グラジオール記目視録紙片にはこう書かれているわ。7本のディソードが集まった時、暗黒の大蛇が現れると。
Alright.
純粋なる邪神の塊。邪神をほふることのできる邪神。あらゆる崩壊を飲み込み、邪神王の身を砕くことのできる。
Takumi did summon a snake.
同一にして異質なるもの。その大蛇を出現させるのよ。グラジオールを倒すために。
She was still unsteady, but she somehow managed to raise her D-sword and close her eyes. It was almost like she was meditating. But I waited a moment and nothing happened. The sky had turned completely black now. It was almost like night had fallen. No, it was even worse. The black mist became a fog that settled over the city of Shibuya. It became a tsunami, filling the city of Shibuya with wicked hearts. It was getting closer, slowly traveling along the rubble-filled ground. Everything was turning black. It was infecting the whole world without a sound. And then the wave was upon us, lapping at our feet. I let out a moan of despair. The rusty world was starting to rot. It was rotting, collapsing, turning into nothingness. The people, the corpse, the rubble, everything was melting together and giving off a terrible stench.
綾瀬どうにか ならないの
どうして
Ayase was looking at her sword tearfully, ignoring my call.
ディソードが7本揃っているのにどうして現れる
Oh, she's crying.
このままじゃグラジオールに世界は飲み込まれてしまうわ。やっぱり黒騎士が7人集まらなければどうしよう。予言通りに進めなければダメだったの。
The waves were getting higher and higher. They'd been at our ankles just 30 seconds ago. Now they were at our knees. The strange thing was that I could feel my body resisting, being swept away by the waves. Did that mean that they were physically here? They weren't just an illusion? That thought terrified me. Shibuya was really about to rot away.
綾瀬が妄想すればいいグラジオールを倒す妄想を
I screamed. I couldn't take it anymore, but Ayase shook her head.
私の妄想じゃないわ。グラジ
だとしても僕にも綾瀬にもその予言をねじ曲げて新しい妄想を現実にすることは可能なはずだろう。それがギガのマニアックスいや黒騎士なんだろう。
でも匠
She was looking at me helplessly.
わからないの。どうすればいいのか。
No. I couldn't speak. The black mist was covering the whole world. The sky was completely dark. There were no stars, no light at all. The black waves were up to our waists, and a torrent of water was threatening to pull us under. It was all that we could do to stay standing. A half-melted corpse flowed right past us, buoyed by the water. I think that's how you pronounce it? I don't know. If I went under, I'd end up like that too. The thought made me want to scream in terror. What do I do? What do I do? But no ideas came. I wasn't a hero, just a creepy otaku. Even if I had a D-sword now, I didn't know how to use it. I was completely useless. Somebody should just stake me to a wall and kill me, right? Just like in the crucified murder. And then I suddenly remembered Fez's song, the lyrics.
歌を歌うんだ。
It wasn't just a guess. It was the only thing I could think of, but I was sure that it would work.
歌で綾瀬の妄想を世界に拡散させるんだ。
The world Fez had created had captivated the youth of Shibuya. The myths of Gladiol by themselves weren't anything special. They might not even exist. Maybe they were just a delusion that only Ayase ever possessed. But now that had changed. Phantasm songs had spread those myths to every young person in the city. She created a shared awareness.
だから歌うんだ。グラジオールを倒す歌を歌ってよ、フェス。
歌えというの？この状況で。
Well, if he ain't gonna do anything else, might as well try it.
歌を歌うことで導きが現れるって前に言ってたじゃないか。
そうね。言ったわ。そしてあのライブで匠と出会えた。匠。
Ayase reached out her hand to me. I grabbed it and held it tight.
匠は好き？私の歌。
Sure, come on, just if I say yes, just start singing. Yeah. I listened to the CD I bought at the store, a concert, a bunch of times. I hadn't because of how much I hated crowds, but I'd actually want to go see her concerts a bunch more times. I nodded and then Ayase smiled and looked so happy.
ここで滅びても別にいいかもしれない。匠がそう言ってくれたから。歌うわ。聞いていて、匠。
Ayase closed her eyes. She concentrated, focusing her mind just for a moment, and then she took a deep breath. When she opened her eyes again, she wasn't Ayase anymore. She was Fez, the lead singer of Phantasm.
最下に契約の地を。
She whispered the name of the song and began to sing. Her voice echoed towards the dark black sky.
悔いをって闇夜を切り裂き月光を浴びて幾千もの鉄意は汝の痛みとなりて今解き放たれるやがて叫びは宙に舞い夜空は赤く染まるだろう十字の杭は力となりやがて聖域へとたどり着く
The song's lyrics gave me the hint I needed.
綾瀬、杭を打つんだ。
The song wasn't about the crucified murder at all.
7本の自走度を合わせて闇夜に打ち込むんだ。
The song was about Gladiol's defeat, the song that would liberate Ayase from her rusted world.
綾瀬の世界を壊せ。
Ayase stared at me. Her eyes were ablaze with fire. I always thought that she was the most beautiful when she was singing. She felt so much more alive. There was no trace of the despair that had been there just a moment ago. Ayase understood exactly what I meant. She said nothing, just nodded. She held my hand tighter. As I struggled to stay upright against the black waves, I entrusted Ayase with my D-sword. When she took it, a red light surrounded it, and it disappeared. But it wasn't gone forever. The red light was swallowed up by Ayase's D-sword, like something was guiding it there. I watched it go, and let go of Ayase's hand. Oh god! Oh man, look at this. She's about to unleash like a Getsuga Tensho. She unleashed the power of the Black Knight. The air around her began to shake with an intense, violent blast of wind. The black waves were pushed back by the shaking air and began to swirl around us like a whirlpool. There was not even a slight trace of the bored, languid girl that Ayase usually was. She raised her sword. She took a wide stance, and she swung. Her body was filled with nervous tension and with a strength of will that was looking towards the future. The pure destructive impulses within her, the ones that she was barely keeping in check, were ready to explode. Oh, I kind of like how this insert song is literally her own song. The red pulsing grew faster and faster. The sword controls faith. That sword is a convergence of sorrow. That sword allows us to interfere with the higher plane. A double-edged sword which swallows up wicked hearts and which buries them. The cry of Ayase's soul, seeking salvation, took physical form. It was a manifestation of her chaotic heart. Her glare was locked onto a single point. The black heavens. The ones that had covered the blue sky I knew. The ones that had covered the red sky she knew. A sky of impure, wicked hearts about to bring darkness to the world. Oh, this is a part of the song that she just sang. All that was left for me to do was pray. The king of wicked hearts, or the Black Knight. It was up to Ayase which would be the winner. But strangely, I felt certain I knew who the victor would be. The myths Ayase had created with her songs would never lose to the king of wicked hearts. So, stakes. Pierce the world.
開け天国の扉
With the speed of a bent bow snapping forward, Ayase threw the weapon with all her might. Oh, she actually just chucked it. I thought I was gonna fire a beam. Oh, wow. A line of light appeared in the air. The impact blew away the darkness. Oh, this pierced the red heavens. This is the thing that usually leads into the credits. And stabbed into the sky. The sky cracked. The crack grew wider. And then, with a flood of sound, the world shattered. Huh. That was a very anime way to end this. Oh, I guess that... Huh, there's nothing after that? I feel like I want an epilogue for that. That just felt like... Alright, final boss beat. We're done. Nothing else. That was a weird ending. This went on for a really long recording time, though. I'm gonna throw it all into one episode just because I kind of want to get through this game. But what do I think about Ayase? Honestly, I kind of thought she was just a delusional person in the other endings, but she was also like this guiding light for Takumi. Whenever he panicked and didn't know something, she would kind of give him another riddle to get the D sword. But overall, I feel like this ending for Ayase ended up helping her a lot because we got to see why she had delusions. It was kind of essentially forced onto her because of, well, the way she sees the world. She basically is interpreting all the things that will happen in her own way because that's how she sees it. I don't understand how the Book of Gladiol ended up being I don't know how it's written because literally whoever wrote the book, whether it's just her delusion or someone actually wrote a book like that, they literally foretold everything that was gonna happen pretty much perfectly. It was literally a prophecy. But whether it was all in Ayase's mind or someone else, someone created that thing, whether or not we could see it. So someone was able to, well, someone knew that all this stuff was gonna happen. I guess we could get a little post-credit scene, I think. And the next thing I knew, color had returned to the world. The sky was blue. I couldn't explain the colors with words, but the sky I looked up at was blue. Had we defeated Gladiol? If nothing else, the black mist covering the world was gone. A warm, soft hand held my own. Ayase was standing beside me. She was looking up at the sky and wordlessly weeping. Aw, look at that smile.
青はあんなに美しい色をしていたのね。
Oh, that's actually pretty sweet.
見えるの？
見えるわ。匠が見ているのと同じ色の空が。
Such a pure color. So pure, it seeps into your heart. So pure, it hurts to look at. I never knew that such a pure color was spread out right above our heads. Shibuya was buried in rubble. It was a city of death. There was no trace of glitter and brightness it had before. But Ayase looked at it, eyes squinting at the light, and said,
世界はこんなにも美しいのね。
She softly squeezed my hands as she spoke. That was a pretty good ending for Ayase, I think. Though I do kind of wonder how this kind of relates to the Genichi Narose Nozomi stuff. A bloody contract for your sins, end. Because at the end of the day, it kind of invalidates a lot of the stuff that Nozomi did, even though they were literally the people creating the threat. Instead, it puts it in the hands of Gladiol. Originally, I thought Narose was going to be Gladiol, because I thought Noah 2 or Narose was going to be the final boss we had to beat. But at the end, that wasn't what happened. I mean, overall, I'm still okay with this. Maybe it's because it wasn't so depressing. I end up liking it more than the Nanami ending. Nanami ending was definitely interesting. It was definitely a bad ending that had its merits, but a lot of it just made me go like, Well, this one kind of made me. It really gave me a lot more understanding of Ayase's character, which I really appreciate because, I mean, we did know a little bit about her in the main story, but it wasn't enough for me to really get her. I think another character I wish to understand more is Yua, but because Yua, I mean, for half the game she's gone, but I feel like there's a lot about her I still have unanswered questions for. But overall, Ayase was a pretty good one. Was a pretty good one. I personally would rate it above Nanami's in my personal list. But yeah, well, that's done with another ending. Next time we're going to tackle Senna's ending, and like the other ones, or like the other, endings that we had to do or choices, we were gonna have to start off at chapter 3 in a save file that isn't already locked into an ending. So next time I want to tackle Senna's ending, but until then, I will be seeing you. See ya!